There comes a moment in every woman's life where she looks at the mirror, not just to fix her hair or adjust her outfit, but to confront her becoming. A moment where she realizes that comfort has turned into a cage. That the version of her who once survived, who once settled, who once made excuses, cannot walk with her into the next level. Sis, this isn't about proving them wrong. This is about finally giving yourself permission to prove you right. You've cried enough. You've played small long enough. You've waited for the timing, for the affirmation, for the peace to come. But sometimes you don't wait for peace. You push for it. You don't wait to feel ready. You force yourself to level up. See, God didn't anoint you to blend in. He didn't place that dream in your spirit just so you could bury it under fear and procrastination. There's something divine about discomfort. It stretches you, grows you, exposes you. And the truth is, if you're too comfortable, you're probably not growing. There's a version of you that's got power in her mouth, fire in her belly, and vision in her spirit. But she's buried beneath the layers of who you've had to be. And baby, in this season, God is calling her out. He's not asking you to feel strong. He's commanding you to be strong, to rise when it hurts, to speak when you'd rather stay silent, to move when everything in you wants to stay still. This word is not for the faint of heart. It's for the woman who knows there's more in her. It's for the one who's tired of surviving and ready to thrive. You've got to force yourself to level up, not because you hate where you are, but because you know this is not where your story ends. So if you're ready to shake off the dust, stand in your power, and walk like the woman God called you to be, then this word is for you. Let's go deeper. Let's go higher. Let's level up. Comfort is seductive. It feels like safety. It whispers lies wrapped in peace. But the truth is, comfort, while it may ease your nerves, will suffocate your calling if you stay in it too long. There's a danger in growing too fond of what's familiar, because when God is trying to pull you into something greater, He rarely does it from the safety of your comfort zone. The calling on your life isn't found in the places where everything makes sense. It's discovered in the stretch, in the uncertainty, in the tension between who you've been and who you're becoming. Sometimes we confuse convenience with confirmation. Just because the road is smooth doesn't mean it's the one God paid for you. And just because it's rough doesn't mean it's not divine. Some of the greatest seasons of growth come wrapped in struggle. And if you've been asking God for more wisdom, more strength, more opportunity, you've got to be willing to let Him shake the ground beneath you. You can't cling to comfort and grab hold of calling at the same time. One hand has to let go. We often pray for elevation, but we're not ready for the evacuation that comes with it. See, when God is ready to level you up, He starts by removing what no longer serves where you're going. That includes relationships, habits, routines, even mindsets. But because we've made a home in what was only meant to be a hallway, we fight the very shift that's trying to set us free. Some of us have mistaken comfort for identity. We've confused survival with purpose. We've become so good at functioning in dysfunction that healing feels foreign and purpose feels risky. God never calls you according to who you've settled to be. He calls you according to who He created you to be. And sometimes He'll let life get uncomfortable just to provoke the version of you that's been silent for too long. That discomfort you feel, that restlessness that keeps waking you up at night, that's not anxiety, it's divine agitation. It's heaven telling you this is not it. It's a spiritual alarm clock that refuses to let you oversleep your destiny. You're being stirred because there's something in you that refuses to die in a place you were only meant to pass through. When God is calling you higher, He'll stop allowing you to get comfortable in places that don't require faith. He'll block the ease. He'll shut doors that made sense in the last season, and it'll feel confusing, even painful. But that's how He prepares you. He strips away what's beneath you so you can stand in what He's called you to. You weren't built for the easy road. You were built for impact. You were built for war. You were built to break curses and shift bloodlines and birth legacy. And that kind of purpose requires a pressure that comfort can't provide. The enemy doesn't mind you being blessed as long as you stay comfortable, because a comfortable woman doesn't disrupt anything. A comfortable woman doesn't challenge anything. A comfortable woman keeps quiet, plays nice, and stays in the box the world gave her. But a woman who recognizes that her comfort is costing her her calling, that woman becomes dangerous. That woman becomes unstoppable. She starts moving differently. She stops settling. She stops entertaining what doesn't grow her. She starts hearing from God in ways she couldn't when she was busy trying to protect what was never meant to be permanent. Some of you are trying to carry calling with a comfort mindset. You want God to use you, but you don't want to feel exposed. You want the platform, but not the pruning. You want to be seen, but you don't want to be stretched. And God is saying, I can't pour new wine into an old wineskin. You're trying to step into next with last season's comfort zone. But the oil doesn't flow in safe places. The anointing hits where surrender begins. And surrender doesn't live in comfort. It lives in sacrifice. You've got to decide, do you want to be comfortable or do you want to be called? Because you can't be both. The moment you say yes to God, truly say yes, is the moment comfort begins to die. It has to. Because your destiny requires movement. It requires obedience even when it's inconvenient. It requires faith even when fear is screaming louder. That's the tension of the called. That's the stretch that matures you. Not when it's easy, but when you choose obedience over comfort. Again and again. You're not stuck because God isn't speaking. You're stuck because you're refusing to move. You're waiting for the perfect moment, for confirmation, for signs. But God already gave you the vision. He already told you what to do. He already stirred your spirit. But because it doesn't feel safe, you're hesitating. And in that hesitation, you're watching seasons pass you by. You're watching doors close. You're watching opportunities slip. Not because they weren't for you, but because you wouldn't leave what was familiar long enough to step into what was promised. It's not that you're not ready. It's that you've gotten used to calling fear wisdom. You've gotten used to calling stagnation stability. But truth be told, you know there's more in you. You know God's been tugging at your heart. You know He's been removing people, shifting your atmosphere, changing your appetite. That's not random. It's divine. That's not coincidence. It's preparation. God is disrupting your comfort because He's trying to activate your call. You've got to stop negotiating with comfort. Stop justifying staying small. Stop explaining your way out of obedience. It's not about how you feel. It's about who you are. And who you are is powerful. Who you are is necessary. Who you are is chosen. And chosen people can't afford to be comfortable people. You've got to be willing to say, this doesn't feel good, but it's growing me. This doesn't make sense, but it's making me. This doesn't look like what I expected, but it looks like what I prayed for. Because sometimes answered prayers come in uncomfortable packaging. You asked God to elevate you, so He's exposing you. You asked Him to make you strong, so He's stripping your crutches. You asked Him for purpose, so He's pressing you. Don't run from that. Don't curse the discomfort. Don't try to escape the stretch. Lean into it. Let it do its work. Let it peel back the layers of fear. Let it reveal the version of you that comfort could never produce. Discipline is the bridge between your intentions and your transformation. It's easy to get excited when the vision is fresh, when the prophecy is still ringing in your ears, when the emotion of the moment feels like fire in your bones. But emotions are fleeting. They can be stirred by a song, triggered by a moment, or silenced by a bad day. Discipline, on the other hand, is what shows up when the feeling disappears. Discipline is what wakes you up when motivation sleeps in. It's what keeps you praying when your heart is heavy. It's what keeps your feet moving when your flesh wants to quit. God doesn't just bless potential, he blesses stewardship. And stewardship requires discipline. It means you don't just shout about the promise, you show up for the process. You show up when it's boring. You show up when it's lonely. You show up when nobody's clapping, because you understand that growth isn't always loud. Sometimes growth is quiet. It happens in the early mornings when no one sees you grinding. It happens in the late nights when you're sacrificing sleep for strategy. It happens in the moments where you choose to fast instead of scroll, to study instead of procrastinate, to pray instead of panic. Your emotions are not reliable leaders. They're indicators, not instructors. And too many of us are letting how we feel determine what we do. But if you only move when you feel like it, you'll never build anything that lasts. Purpose doesn't bow to your feelings. Purpose demands consistency. And consistency doesn't care about your mood. You've got to develop the kind of discipline that looks your feelings in the face and says, you don't run this. You've got to be able to say, even though I feel tired, I still show up. Even though I feel unqualified, I still obey. Even though I feel scared, I still speak. The enemy isn't always coming for your talent. Sometimes he's coming for your discipline, because he knows if he can distract you long enough, delay you long enough, discourage you deeply enough, you'll forfeit what was always yours. He doesn't have to destroy you if he can just make you lazy, if he can make you overthink, if he can convince you that you need to feel inspired to be effective. But discipline isn't about inspiration. It's about decision. It's about choosing the mission over the mood, the purpose over the pressure, the calling over the convenience. God gives you the vision, but you have to build the vessel. Noah had the word from God, but it was discipline that built the ark. David had the anointing, but it was discipline in the field that prepared him for the throne. Esther had favor, but it was the discipline of fasting and positioning that saved a nation. You can't ask for divine outcomes while ignoring divine instructions. There's a system, a strategy, a sacred rhythm that comes with divine assignment, and you won't discover it until you start honoring discipline more than you honor convenience. You've cried enough, you've journaled enough. You've dreamed and talked and planned and posted. Now it's time to build. Now it's time to get uncomfortable. Now it's time to turn your pain into fuel and your faith into focus. Discipline is what makes sure your goals don't die in the notebook. It's what makes sure your healing isn't just emotional, but behavioral. It's what turns brokenness into breakthrough. Because healing is not just about what you stop doing, it's about what you consistently start doing. It's about habits, it's about patterns, it's about consistency. We keep waiting for a new season like it's going to arrive at our doorstep wrapped in gold, but sometimes the new season is locked behind the old used lack of discipline. Sometimes the breakthrough isn't delayed, it's being developed, and God is waiting to see if you'll be faithful in private before he releases you in public. Because if you can't be disciplined with 10, you won't be disciplined with 1,000. If you can't be disciplined with the platform you have now, you won't be trusted with the one you're praying for. God is watching not just how you shout, but how you show up. Discipline is spiritual warfare. It's telling the enemy, you won't control me through feelings today. It's telling your past, you no longer have access to my future. It's choosing to create new cycles even when your body is addicted to the old ones. And make no mistake, your body will fight you. Your mind will resist you because change is threatening to the systems that kept you bound. But that's why discipline is an act of war. It's an act of worship. It's not just about routines, it's about reverence. You discipline your body and your mind because you honor what God placed inside you. Some days you'll feel like quitting. Some days the vision will feel too heavy. Some days the loneliness of obedience will scream louder than the applause of compromise. But in those moments, discipline becomes your anchor. It reminds you that God didn't bring you this far to abandon you. It reminds you that your calling is bigger than your crisis. It reminds you that the version of you who said yes to this process had eternity in mind, not just temporary discomfort. And that version of you deserves to be honored even when it's hard. You can't level up without self-leadership. That's what discipline is. It's leading yourself before anyone else follows you. It's commanding your time, protecting your peace, managing your emotions, and cultivating the strength to stay consistent. Because everyone wants the crown, but few are willing to carry the cross. And the truth is, you won't always feel chosen. You won't always feel anointed. But discipline reminds you that you are, regardless of how you feel. Discipline gives your destiny structure. It builds the frame for what God is trying to pour into your life. Without it, the blessings will overflow and create chaos. That's why God develops your discipline before he sends the harvest. He's not just preparing the blessing for you, he's preparing you for the blessing. And you've got to be strong enough to hold what you prayed for, not just in spirit, but in stamina, not just in gifting, but in structure. Discipline gives you the capacity to sustain the weight of what you were born to carry. You don't need another sign. You don't need more motivation. You need to decide. You need to decide that your future matters more than your feelings, that your calling is worth the cost, that you are not waiting to feel ready. You are choosing to be ready, choosing to be consistent, choosing to show up even when your mind tells you to sit down. Because when discipline speaks louder than emotion, transformation becomes inevitable. And once you've tasted the fruit of consistency, you'll never again settle for the chaos of comfort. You don't need permission to become powerful. Too many of us are sitting on greatness, waiting for someone to validate what God has already confirmed, waiting for the right moment, the right people, the right opportunities, when the truth is God already stamped your assignment with authority when he formed you. You don't need applause to activate it. You don't need a title to walk in it. You don't need a platform to steward it. Power is not something given by man, it's something awakened by purpose. And the moment you decide to stop shrinking and start walking, everything around you begins to shift. There are gifts inside of you that have been lying dormant, not because you're not ready, but because you're still asking for permission to take up space. You're still waiting for someone to co-sign the very thing heaven already wrote into your DNA. You keep playing small, not because you don't know who you are, but because you're afraid of who you could become. You're afraid of being too much. You're afraid of outgrowing the people who are comfortable with your brokenness. But God didn't call you to be digestible. He called you to be undeniable. There's a fire in you that was never meant to be dimmed just so other people could feel comfortable. Every time you silence your voice to make others comfortable, you're betraying the assignment on your life. Every time you wait for a nod, for approval, for a green light from people who don't even understand your blueprint, you delay your destiny. They weren't in the room when God called you. They didn't hear what he whispered into your spirit. They didn't see what he showed you in the midnight hour when you were crying on the floor. They didn't feel the shift in your belly when you realized you were called to more than surviving. So why are you waiting for them to confirm what they can't even comprehend? Power doesn't show up when everything is perfect. Power shows up when you decide to walk boldly in imperfect conditions. It shows up when you take the first step not knowing how the second one will appear. It shows up when you decide that fear is no longer your ruler and insecurity is no longer your excuse. You become powerful the moment you stop negotiating with what God already settled. He didn't ask your peers if you were qualified. He didn't check your followers. He didn't review your resume. He called you, and that call was enough. You keep waiting to feel confident before you show up, but confidence doesn't create movement. Movement creates confidence. You don't get the oil from observing, you get the oil from pressing. You've got to walk into rooms where you don't feel ready and still carry the posture of someone who belongs, not because you're arrogant, but because you know who sent you. You've got to speak with authority even when your voice shakes, because your trembling doesn't cancel your truth. You've got to stop waiting for your environment to catch up with your evolution. There is a version of you that is not afraid to be seen, not afraid to be misunderstood, not afraid to be different. That version of you is buried under years of conditioning, rejection, comparison, and fear. But just because you've been hidden doesn't mean you're not powerful. Sometimes God hides you not to punish you, but to prepare you. And when the season shifts, He doesn't need the world to understand you. He just needs you to obey, because your yes is the catalyst for everything He wants to birth through you. You were never meant to blend in. That's why the places you tried to conform to never felt like home. That's why you've always felt a little too much, a little too deep, a little too intense. You're not dramatic, you're not difficult, you're not broken. You're chosen. And chosen people don't always fit in. They disturb systems, they challenge norms, they shake atmospheres. You're not supposed to make sense to everyone. You're supposed to make impact. And impact requires the courage to stand out. You don't need permission to change your life. You don't need anyone's approval to set boundaries, to elevate your mindset, to pivot into purpose. You don't need a committee to confirm your calling. The authority was already written on your life before you took your first breath. But as long as you keep asking others to co-sign your anointing, you'll keep living beneath your power. You'll keep waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to move, when the truth is, you were created to lead the movement. Some people will be uncomfortable with your growth, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your evolution reveals their stagnation. And if you keep shrinking to make them feel safe, you'll start resenting your own potential. You'll start sabotaging your own breakthrough. You'll start dimming your light and wondering why your life feels dark. But God didn't call you to be liked. He called you to be light. Light disrupts darkness. Light demands attention. Light refuses to apologize for shining. Every time you delay your purpose to make someone else feel comfortable, you're robbing the world of the version of you that was sent to heal, build, shift, and restore. There are people attached to your obedience. There are assignments connected to your voice. There are miracles waiting on your movement. And they don't need the watered down version of you. They need the bold, healed, whole, and activated version of you. The one who doesn't need applause to believe in her anointing. The one who doesn't need agreement to walk in authority. You've been waiting for a moment, but you are the moment. You've been waiting for the right room, but you are the room. You keep praying for doors, but you were created to be the door. When you stop asking for permission, you start living from the inside out, not the outside in. You start creating instead of consuming. You start initiating instead of imitating. You start realizing that everything you need is already within you. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about unbecoming everything you were told you had to be in order to be accepted. Power is not found in performance, it's found in presence. It's not in doing more, it's in being aligned. And alignment starts when you decide to stop shrinking to fit spaces that were never designed to carry your fullness. You've outgrown some things, not because you're better than them, but because you're becoming more of you. And you can't stay loyal to a version of yourself that God is trying to deliver you from. You can't protect your old identity and expect to walk in new authority. You don't need permission to heal. You don't need permission to evolve. You don't need permission to reinvent, to reset, to rise. Every new level requires a new mindset. And that mindset must be rooted in boldness, not arrogance, not ego, but a deep, unshakable awareness that you are who God says you are, and no title, no rejection, no delay can strip that from you. Once you internalize that truth, you move different. You speak different. You show up different, because power doesn't come from what you wear or where you stand. It comes from knowing who sent you and walking like you believe it. Breakdowns are often the beginning of breakthroughs. It doesn't always look like it in the moment, but sometimes the place where you feel like you're falling apart is actually the place where God is pulling everything into alignment. It's not always the mountaintop that produces transformation. It's the valley, it's the darkness, it's the confusion, the loss, the silence. Because that's where the truth starts speaking louder than your pride. That's where the masks fall off. That's where your soul gets honest. And sometimes you don't find God in the victory, you find him in the wreckage. We want to look strong, composed, successful. We want to appear like we have it all together. But sometimes God will allow the illusion of control to collapse just to show us where our true foundation lies. It's in the breakdown that we realize how much we've been relying on ourselves. It's in the breakdown that we see the relationships that were propping up our insecurity. It's in the breakdown that we realize the difference between being busy and being whole. And when everything falls, that's when you can finally hear the still, small voice saying, "This isn't the end, this is the beginning." You don't have to be ashamed of your breakdown. You don't have to hide the tears, the questions, the wrestling. God is not intimidated by your process. He's not turned off by your struggle. In fact, he often does his deepest work in the most broken places. He's not looking for your perfection. He's after your surrender. And breakdowns have a way of stripping us down to surrender. They bring you to the end of yourself, not so you can die there, but so you can be rebuilt from the inside out. Because what's coming next requires a version of you that comfort couldn't produce. There's something about hitting rock bottom that reveals the rock beneath. When everything else is stripped away, when people walk away, when plans fall through, when identity crumbles, that's when you find what truly holds you. And if you've been through a season where it feels like everything has been shaking, that's not a sign that you're failing. That's a sign that God is building something new. But before he builds, he clears. He removes what can't hold weight. He tears down what was never supposed to be permanent. And sometimes that process feels like a breakdown. But not everything that breaks is bad. Some things need to be broken. Some pride needs to break. Some patterns need to break. Some relationships, some habits, some mindsets, they need to be shattered so that truth can enter. You've been praying for a breakthrough, but you didn't know it would come wrapped in heartbreak. You've been asking God to grow you, but you didn't expect him to prune you. You've been asking for purpose, but you didn't realize he'd first have to disrupt your plans. The breakdown is not punishment, it's preparation. You don't build resilience in ease, you build it in the fire. You don't discover your strength when everything's going right. You discover it when everything's falling apart and you're still breathing, still showing up, still believing, maybe not loudly, maybe not confidently, but still. That stillness, that flicker of hope, that whisper of faith that won't die no matter how much you've cried. That's where breakthrough begins. It begins when you realize that your survival wasn't luck, it was grace. That your heartbreak didn't kill you, it cracked you open. That your lowest point wasn't a death sentence, it was a delivery room. Sometimes you have to break so you can see what's inside of you. Sometimes you have to be emptied so God can fill you. Because as long as you're full of everything else, fear, ego, pride, validation, there's no room for purpose to flow. The breakdown clears the space. It's not the end of your strength, it's the start of your surrender. And surrender is where transformation begins. Not in striving, not in image, but in the sacred place where your knees hit the floor and your heart says, God, I can't do this without you. There's a certain clarity that only pain can bring. Pain exposes what pretending covers. It reveals what you truly believe. When everything is stripped away, when all you have left is your breath and your brokenness, that's when God steps in with clarity, with healing, with power, because he's close to the brokenhearted. He doesn't run from your mess, he steps into it. And sometimes the breakthrough isn't something that shows up around you, it's something that awakens in you. It's when your perspective shifts, when your faith deepens, when your identity detaches from what fails and attaches to what's eternal. We think breakthrough means everything gets fixed, but often breakthrough means you get fixed, you get aligned, you get real, you stop pretending, stop performing, stop running, and you start standing. Even if it's shaky, even if it's new, even if it's unfamiliar. The breakthrough is not always the blessing, it's the becoming. Becoming whole, becoming free, becoming unshakable in who you are and who you belong to. That's the breakthrough. That's what the breakdown came to birth. You don't have to pretend like it doesn't hurt. You don't have to fake joy to prove you have faith. Faith is not the absence of pain. It's the decision to believe in spite of pain. It's the courage to say, I'm still here. I'm still believing. I still trust that something beautiful can come from this mess. And even if your voice is trembling, even if your eyes are swollen from crying, even if your hands are empty, your heart is still in God's hand, and his hands don't drop what he values. There's power in your pain. There's wisdom in your wounds. There's a story in your scars. Don't rush past your breakdown. Don't despise it. Don't label it too quickly. Sit with it. Learn from it. Let it teach you what ease could never reveal. Let it strip away the false identities, the people-pleasing, the perfectionism, the pressure. Let it break you open in the best way possible, open to healing, open to wholeness, open to divine redirection. The breakdown season will humble you. It will quiet your pride. It will reveal the gaps in your foundation, but it will also awaken your spirit. It will make you hungry for truth, for purpose, for depth. It will pull you out of shallow living and into sacred surrender. And when you come through it, you won't come out the same. You'll come out wiser, stronger, clearer, more grounded, because the breakdown didn't destroy you. It delivered you into a new dimension of identity, purpose, and divine awareness. Sometimes you've got to lose what you thought was holding you up just to discover what was really carrying you all along. Sometimes you've got to be emptied of what you wanted so you can be filled with what you needed. Sometimes the walls have to fall so the light can break in. And sometimes what looks like falling apart is really just falling into place. Because some of God's greatest rebuilds start with a breakdown. Not because he delights in your pain, but because he knows the version of you on the other side is stronger, deeper, and more powerful than anything you're leaving behind.